It's the top 10 of the year. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. It's the final countdown. Doo-doo-doo-doo. All right, it is the end of the year and it's time to do a top 10 of the year. Now, you've heard me multiple times. I've been very adamant about, you know what, we got to include December in our months when we consider the whole year. And so that's why literally we're at the end of December. I am at a point where I am very much sure that I will not be reading any more books for the rest of the year. And by that I mean I'll be reading them, but I will not be finishing any more books by the end of the year. So therefore I know that I can do this final top 10 for the year 2021. So I am not a hypocrite, even though this is still technically December. Just wanted to clarify some of that, just so you understand where I'm coming from. All right, jumping right into it. Honorable mentions, got to get some of these just clear here. Honorable mentions are definitely, this was a hard list. It was such a hard list to put together. Because there's so many. I even did a bunch of rereads and I still had to have a really hard time putting together my top 10 of the year. But anyway, so this was just of what I read this year, top 10, so it can be published in pretty much any year. But anyway, Sorcery, honorable mention, really loved it, but it's still just, it lacks some substance, definitely. It's good, it's so quotable, but, you know, the actual story itself, it was fine, you know. Nothing crazy, but still good. That's why honorable mention. As much as I love the quotes and everything, I want to make sure. The Dark Trials was on my top 10 list for earlier, the middle of the year, and it's just been eked out of the top 10, but it's still, I wanted to give it honorable mention. It still was so good, such a good introduction to the series. Wanted to make sure and include it. And the next two I read on audio book, and they were this was the hardest. These are the hardest ones to get just the boot here. So I feel bad, but here we are. The Sword of Kaigen, it's so good, but it just got eked out. And The Player of Games, so The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong, and The Player of Games by Ian M. Banks. Just barely eking out here, just because of so many good things that I read this year. So we will jump into that because we're still jumping all over the place. So top 10, what is the top 10? First of all, I actually have my Kindle here, so we can look up some of these. Number 10, we're going with Black Flame, and that'll show you how good of a top 10 this is, because Black Flame is number 10, and I'm loving the Cradle series. I think this one I just liked it a little more than Skysworn, which I still very much liked, and I'm looking forward to more Cradle in my life. Anyway, so we're gonna get some more Cradle in my life. All right, number nine. I read The Heroes. This wasn't really too fair, but again, telling you, I love Joe Abercrombie. And how good this list is. Probably, honestly, my least favorite of the standalones, and I've read them all now. Now I can say that. I really liked Red Country, and it might have just been because I read that just right when it came out. But I liked Best Served Cold better. That was a really good one. The Heroes was still good, though. Heroes was really good. It's the same, it's witty Joe Abercrombie, so you know you're going to get wonderful quotes that you just get a quote all the time. I literally was just talking about the other day, someone was asking like, what are some quotes that you use often? And I was like, pretty much daily I tell my kids it's better to do a thing than to live with the fear of it. And that usually involves like eating their vegetables. So, but it works for me, okay? So anyway, I think that's totally fair, but it's so quotable. Abercrombie, you already know, what am I talking about? Number 7, and this will show you that this is really without genre, just a top 10 of the year of what I've read, because science fiction is making its first appearance, possibly last. I do prefer, I guess it did first with Player of Games earlier for honorable mention, but Chasm City by Alistair Reynolds. I already have been talking about my plans for reading some more in the Revelation space universe. This is just, I had been hearing how good this is for a long time, and so I read it finally, and I'd read Revelation Space ages ago, and it was so good, and this was even better. So I enjoyed this even better. Just anyway, great far future science fiction with so many just interesting concepts. Anyway, just the whole, one ship traveling to another very slowly, because anyway, just I think because some of these are just things that I've thought of about spacefaring and for so long, and it's just interesting to have someone put it into, here's what a generation ship would kind of have to deal with, and oh hey, guess what? They're not going to be perfect. Oh, also, one of the things, just interesting thing that I had never thought about was, in technology on the place where they started from is going to keep continuing to do better. And so then they still can communicate and tell them, hey, here's how you can fix something. Here's how you can make it better. Just, anyway, always constantly making you think and go, that's an interesting concept. That's an interesting concept. That's what I love about science fiction, is constantly just expanding your brain. It's the best. Number 7. We have Blood and Bone. This is number 5 in the Malazan Empire. I've been making my way slowly through these. I know recently I actually put together a video ages ago. I need to just actually edit it, about why you should read Ian Cameron Esselmont. I know recently Patrick put together a video, and I thought it was a very well done video, and I 100% appreciate just being honest about, hey, this isn't working for me. And he was saying how the Malazan Empire did not work for him, and I get it, I 100% get it, but it's one of those that it's working for me. And I think because I'm so in love with the Malazan world, so it's not really fair that I want to hear about all the intricacies of every stupid thing ever, and that's where Ian Cameron Esselmont, I think, really just he adds so much to it. I just feel like to really get into the world, as if 10,000 page books aren't enough, you got to read 6 more. Anywhere from 200 to 500, 200 to like 600 pages in trade paperback. So this one's good though. I mean, Erickson and Esselmont have already made me hate the desert. They've made me hate ice and frozen places, and this is to add to the list, hating jungles. They just have this ability to just show you the worst parts and the most miserable parts of places and make you feel like you're there and hating life along with these poor people. So, Malazan Empire. All right, number 6. We are going with an audiobook. These actually next 3, it looks like, are going to be audiobooks. So, audiobooks, we're looking at On the Shoulders of Titans by Andrew Rowe, The Arcane Ascension, number 2. This is one I've been slowly reading because I love this series so much, and I tend to do this, and I got to stop it because it's like you can reread. I know, it's allowable. I'll permit myself to be able to reread things so I can just enjoy the books that I love. Why do I put myself through this? I don't know, but this series is so good. It's so fun. It is all my favorite video games packed into one and in literary form. I love it. It's just, it's wonderful. And I can't get enough of them. And powering up and the leveling up in book form is so awesome. So I just cannot recommend it enough. This is one I think I found the series. Yeah, I found the series through Reddit, the R Fantasy. And there's just a lot of good stuff. And again, how many so far that have I talked about that are independently published and on my top 10 list for the year. And I think that really it tells you a lot, and why it's so important to give independently and self-published authors a shot here, because they can be so good. All right, number 5 is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. The band, number 1, I loved it, and I need to read Bloody Rose already. This is just one I keep throwing at people. I'm like, it's such an easy one to recommend. It recommends itself. It's just like, how do you like some witty Joe Abercrombie type fantasy grouping mixed with classic rock? and somehow works, and not only works, but works so well that you're going, how is this working the whole time? And it just does. It's so wonderful. And I can't wait to read more. And I hope Eames has a great, illustrious career. All right, number 4, we are going with, and this is kind of a bit of a mixture, but I finally caught up with the Dresden Files this year. So another audio, Peace Talks and Battleground. It's pretty much one book. I did put Battleground on here, and I know it's a bit controversial, but it's such a good, I thought it was so good. It's so good. It's so cool when you really realize that Butcher really has like these 20 some odd books all planned out, and he had it all planned out ahead of time. And obviously there's some crushing parts. There's some major characters. Anyway, I won't get into spoilers, but I absolutely love the Dresden Files. They start off so kind of campy and just kind of fun popcorn, which, they still are to some degree, but they get, I guess more serious, more epic as you go along. And about book 5, it really expands in this really detailed world, and the plot starts going from kind of a one-off, almost like a, your back in the day TV show, procedural type, NCIS or whatever, but for magic users in Chicago, to like this kind of overarching, like, holy cow, there are implications to everything. There's the Fae, there's all these things that just kind of add to the world, and that influence the world and are big and scary. And so it's just amazing what he's done, and that he's really like seen a lot of these already and knew where he was going. I just don't even. Anyway, just to watch an interview with Jim Butcher and just have him explain how he just he went and just put together this insane outline of everything, and he's actually still been following it, and it's just amazing. All right, number three. All right, number 3 is a Kindle Read, and so I brought my Kindle, like I said. We've got The Labyrinth of Flame by Courtney Schaefer. It'd been a while for some reason. Again, this is one of those that I forced myself to finish a series that I loved. It doesn't seem rational in any way, but I had to do it. Courtney, it's just because I don't ever want them to end. Once I start them, I don't want them to end, and it's an issue. It's a problem. Courtney Schaefer, Shattered Sigil, number 3. It starts with the Whitefire Crossing, and if you want to get a unique, just interesting, magical world, that it really uses magic in everything, and it's constantly talking about magic, constantly everything, charms and all kinds of magic are just, it's constant thing. I mean, I read a lot of fantasy that are low fantasy, George R. R. Martin, The Song of Ice and Fire, that's you kind of vaguely talk about some magic, but if you want a series that is like about magic, then this is your one, and this is number 3. And it's a completed trilogy. This is when Nightshade Books had some issues with publishing. It's even a good quote, "Best new author I've encountered in years" by Janie Wirtz. And of all author quotes, I trust a Janie Wirtz quote, that's for sure. She doesn't do those lightly, I don't think. But anyway, this is just one. On top of it, the author is an avid rock climber and outdoors person, and she just you can feel it in there because it's also about, you know, rock climbing and just the love of this climbing and getting up there, and you literally just feel it. It's wonderful. I compared it to, if you ever read or watch the movie Into the Wild, and you just kind of watch that and you go, I've got to go live and get out. And this is one of those that makes you feel like, okay, I'm part of that. I want to do this. So it's just wonderful. All right, number 2. This is one I've been kind of teasing that I didn't know if it was going to be 1 or 2, but I think it was once I actually looked at my list again, I was like, oh yeah. But number 2, Empire of Silence. I just finished it. It's number 1 in the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. I was so impressed. I did a reread of Dune this year. I watched the movie for Dune. I was a little Dune obsessed, as you probably don't know because you haven't watched the channel. But it has some Dune in it that kind of there's a clear influence. It has some Red Rising, which I love. That's such a good trilogy. It's one of my top 10, I believe, science fiction of all time. And so it has a lot of stuff that I just love, plus it's really well written, plus the audiobook is excellently narrated. I'm blanking on who the narrator is, but so excellent. Anyway, I cannot stop talking about how good the series is, and it's automatically jumped right up for me. All right, without further ado, this one is one. It was number 1 on my mid-year list. It's kind of obvious, I think, and especially with how obsessed, again, with another thing I've been this year. Memory of Light. I finished this in January of this year, and I mean, you don't finish a 14-book main series, 15-book if you're looking at, which I did finish, New Spring, the prequel as well, 15 books in a series without appreciating it somewhat. And then for Sanderson to just stick the landing so well, for obviously Robert Jordan to have a landing to stick so well, not only in setup but also in just his notes prepared, that was all ready to be able to do, that he was prepared for that. It's so impressive, and that's why Jordan's a legend, Sanderson's a legend. To make it so seamless and so wonderful in a series this intricate. Obviously it's not, a perfect transition, but an author taking over another author's work and doing this good of a job, it shouldn't be possible, and it happened. And somehow we got it as Wheel of Time fans, and I absolutely loved this book. I cannot get enough of it, and I we'll talk about the book or the series on Amazon as well soon enough. I need to kind of put together my probably final thoughts on watching that whole thing. It's definitely different, but I think that the differences actually kind of just emphasize that the book series is so much is you got to read it. You have to read the book series. That's really what it comes down to. And I don't know if I've ever been closer to characters than in this series, and because they're just so well done. Anyway, that's my top 10. What's your top 10 of the year? I literally look at my comments from my last video. I love talking top 10s because it gives me stuff. If someone's going to put something in their top 10, it means it's good. I better look at it. And so I appreciate it. I appreciate your recommendations. And I thank you. It's been such a fun half of the year of actually doing videos, but just a fun year in general. Clearly, I got to read the end of the Wheel of Time. Please, I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough for continuing to even just come to this channel and talk with me and chat with me and just have so much fun talking this great, beautiful, wonderful stuff that we get to talk about. So anyway, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will catch you next year. Bye.